From the Ben Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, a free weekly podcast covering the world of mixed martial arts and beyond with myself, Richard Hunter, and that guy.
Frank Mir.
He's Frank Mir, and together we do this. We've been doing this for...
Does that sound like a smooth trade-off when you go, and my partner? Is that like other groups do it?
Lean on into that microphone.
Does it sound smooth? Or do
where you just go, and I'm Frank Mir.
Yeah.
I would like it if you did more of the formatics.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Is that what it's called, the formatics?
Yeah, the formatics are like where we're at, who we are, what we're doing.
So let's start over a lot. So
okay, you want to give it a
let's give it a shot.
Okay, and also we have an in-studio guest, so you'll want to introduce him.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? All right, here we go. Take two. And I'm going to leave this in the edit. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Frank Mir. You're here at Phone Booth Fighting with my partner Richard Hunter.
Hello.
And today in Vegas, we have. I got to give you a chance to talk, huh?
No, you just keep going. I like it.
Oh, really? No,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like it when you open it up. Phone
You know
Booth
what?
Fighting.
This is sort of like...
As soon as you go on Phone Booth Fighting with Richard Hunter and I'm Frank Mir, I could just tag on without you actually cueing me to say I'm Frank Mir.
Well, you're not old enough to remember this, but back when Donnie and Marie had their own weekly variety show on television, they would sing this song where one would go, I'm a little bit country, and the other one would go, I'm a little bit rock and roll. Do you remember this, Eric?
You know what's funny is I've heard that done before.
Oh,
because in pop culture, people make jokes.
Yeah,
I never knew that was actually a
that's where
thing.
it's from.
Donnie and Marie.
But if you paid attention...
Well, how old are you, Eric?
39.
Oh, I'm older than you. Shit.
Yeah. Well, if you pay it, if you watch the show from week to week, one of them would be a little bit country and the other would be a little bit rock and roll, and then they'd switch it.
Switch it. Okay.
So see, we could do that.
We could, yeah. So one of us opens, but then
You can
whoever
be Donnie
opens,
to
as
my
soon as I
Marie.
say who we're doing, then the other person just jumps in. Like, for example, watch.
Yeah, okay.
Go.
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Frank Mir, and you're watching. You're watching? Or,
Well, some people are watching if they're
That's
on
true.
our Phone Booth Fighting
watch.
YouTube
You know what?
channel.
I'll do this
Thank
one.
you,
I
Eric. Thanks
got
for
it.
watching
All right, ready?
and subscribing.
Hi, I'm Frank Mir, and this is Phone Booth Fighting. No, that doesn't sound right either. And this is, I like that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we go. Hey, everybody, this is Phone Booth Fighting. I'm Frank Mir.
I'm Richard Hunter.
And I have an in-studio guest today. Eric from Xtreme Couture's head coach.
Yes.
Talk about some of his past fights this last weekend.
That's right, and he's got a couple of really big fights coming up, including a title fight. This is going to be top of mind coming up at UFC 238 on June 8th. We'll be talking about Eric Nicksick, is the general manager over at Xtreme Couture, where I'm doing my Win for Warriors Season 3 training, as a matter of fact.
General manager, head coach. Does
Season
it
2
matter?
for me. What does it say on
prefer?
your business card?
You know, Dennis is the head coach of the team for me.
Okay.
And I head coach certain fighters, but
Yes.
as far as the team goes, Dennis Davis is the head coach.
So when I go into your corner office, the nameplate
Gym
says
manager.
GM.
Yeah,
okay.
man.
Yeah, got it.
You know, actually, speaking about this, talking about gyms, you know how, right now the UFC and Bellator, UFC specifically, has really gone away from marketing gyms. You know, like it used to be like, hey, that guy's from AKA or that guy's from Top Team, that guy's a Couture guy, you know, like, so we were talking at the FFC meeting the other day, and I actually brought up, it'd be cool if we started showcasing gyms during their fight corporate, you know, and say, hey, you know, Syndicate is up by 3 points on the season so far, or for whatever.
Smart.
Yeah, and that way we can actually give credit to different gyms for being proficient, not just having one gym that has a killer. But I mean, if you have and that's what I think brings popularity. And at the end, we can have an award, cash bonus, notoriety. That's what would you think about that? I
think it's great, and it keeps that friendly rivalry going on with the city of Las Vegas and the guys that are fighting here. It kind of showcases those guys.
Well, I wasn't open up to everybody. I mean, if anybody has a fighters in there, we'll just start keeping track.
I love it.
Obviously, the Vegas gyms will have a leg up.
Right.
But I think also, too, it'd be incentive for you guys to sit there and go, okay, we have a welterweight who's fighting on the card. If he thinks he's going to get injured, maybe one of his partners step in because it's, hey, for the team, guys. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I just thought it would add a little bit more intrigue.
I think that's real smart. And I now that I think about it, I mean, as I came up, gaining awareness of professional mixed martial arts, I very closely associated camps and teams. I mean, going all the way back to Lion's Den was like the first one, But
you're right. Shit, I mean, that goes well.
Yeah, so
IFL days.
Yeah.
Well, the IFL, and I actually brought that up in the meeting. I was like, hey, I like the concept the IFL was trying to do as far as teams, but as Americans, we don't really give a shit too much about cities. Like the whole my city, your city. It's like, we're just, our sports are, I don't know. it doesn't seem like people just are just especially with free agency now with teams. I mean, people have their team
bouncing around.
Yeah, but as far as I don't know if their city, I don't see the same camaraderie as much as you have. I mean, you could have it to where like, okay, Greg Jackson's from Albuquerque, so Albuquerque take pride that Greg Jackson's is there. But if we sit there and go, oh, this is the team from Albuquerque, I don't know. I felt like I always missed something when they did it that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, it's a great idea. And you mentioned FFC. There's another card, tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, tomorrow night are mixed fights and stuff. So we have, I think tomorrow we might only have all MMA. I don't know if I'll find out today at the weigh-ins.
Yeah, Frank is, if you don't know, Frank is doing color commentary for FFC, which is a promotion that's running out of the Rio here in Las Vegas in the Fight Dome. And I attended a card a couple of weeks ago. Have you been over to one?
Yeah, I went and watched Max's fight.
Okay,
you were over there. Kyle Reyes. I
was so impressed with the setup.
Yeah,
they did great.
It's small, but you to look at it on television, you wouldn't know if that place holds 400 or 10,000. I mean,
it's definitely meant for the studio audience.
Yeah,
I mean, for people tuning in, watching, it's phenomenal.
Very intimate setting.
Yeah,
it was
I like
nice.
it.
Yeah, very nicely done.
Yeah, and I like the mixed thing. And that's actually something that got brought up yesterday, and I'm glad unanimously there was about 10 of us in there. The owner or side was, say, hey, what if we make it to where, okay, this card on this Thursday is all kickboxing. Then the following week, we do all boxing and then all MMA.
Smart.
I didn't like it. I was like, no, I like doing the mix. I like it on each card mixed up.
Put it through.
Yeah. I just feel like, people are just more exposed to the, because pretty much if you like MMA, you're going to love kickboxing. I never met anybody that watches an MMA fight and goes, kickboxing's boring to me. And sometimes it's actually the opposite. I think kickboxing matches generally are a little bit more exciting to watch.
Well, the nice thing when the last one I went to, the same thing was they had a boxing match that I might never have seen these two guys fight, and it was literally fight of the night. Yeah, and you might not have caught that at a regular MMA show. Which
there's a lot of MMA fans that won't go to boxing fights. I, for whatever reason, I don't know why boxing just shot itself in the foot.
Yeah,
doesn't make that crossover. But the sport of boxing is still extremely, exciting to watch. And that's something I brought up. There's a lot of people that will come and watch a boxing match because they've seen the MMA fight. They came for the MMA and they'll stay for the boxing type scenario.
No, you're right.
Where if we said, hey, it's a pure boxing night, I don't know if we get the same viewership. Or just, I don't know. I don't think so.
It was good. It's like a sampler. It's like a music festival. I mean, you go and, there's 7-8 bands on a bill. There may be one or two that you're going for, but you'll see a couple other ones that you weren't ordinarily going to see.
Well, my point that I told them was, hey, look, if you're a fan of MMA, almost all the fans now know what a triangle or an arm ball or an inside leg takedown. They understand what's going on in the grappling aspect. But they bring their girlfriend or their boyfriend, whoever, along with them who's not a fan. It's not, if you don't know what's going on, it's not exciting. And you can't hear the commentators explain it to you live. Boxing and kickboxing, you don't have to know shit about what's going on. And it's exciting. Well, that guy punched that guy and he fell down in the face. I get the concept. I mean, obviously, the more knowledge you have, the more exciting it is when you figure out, this guy's really working off this side or he's in this angle. Wow. But even if you have no understanding, it's like, well, that guy just punched that guy in the face. That's self-explanatory.
Right. No, I liked it. They had a kickboxing and a boxing, and those ended up being some of the more exciting fights I thought that night.
Yeah, it actually helped us out because I just now started up on the last card. Was it 3 weeks ago? And we had 4 MMA fights in the main card, and the 5th was a title fight for kickboxing. And we needed the kickboxing match because all 4 of the MMA fights, first round, they were spectacular finishes. Everybody just was like out getting a highlight reel, which is great. But then also everybody was trying to get a highlight reel. Yeah, I was like, shit. Yeah. We've been here for 2 hours. We've watched 10 minutes of fighting.
Well, Frank, we're lucky that we got Eric on a day that he could come in studio because he's a world traveler these days. He's going to be very busy coming up. I tell you what, let's talk about that title fight first and foremost. I've got that on my mind because I saw Jessica I this week over at the UFC Performance Institute and talked to her for a bit. She will be challenging for Valentina Schevchenko's flyweight title. That's June 8th in Chicago, UFC 238 on pay-per-view. You're going to be there.
I'll be there.
Cornering that one. She mentioned you, I know, in our conversation with the media about how she's relocated from Cleveland to train at Xtreme Couture. I met her jiu-jitsu coach. I know she brought some people down with her, but she's basically incorporated herself into the Xtreme Couture family now, right?
Yeah, very much so. And I've known her for a long time. So, you know, I don't know what the extent of what happened in Cleveland, but she just told me she needed to change the pace and to get out of there, and if we would bring her on. And I said, well, why don't you come out? We had so much time in between. I think it ended up being like 12 weeks. I said, why? To me, like when you left a gym like that you've been at forever, it was kind of like a divorce. So I said, look, come down, come train for a little bit. You
didn't want it to be the rebound.
Right. You know, exactly. And
I never thought about that until you just said that, but yeah, it totally makes sense.
You know, and that was the thing, is like, why don't you come in and utilize the PI, get as much rehab and strength and conditioning as you can, and let's hit some mitts. You know, let's start off easy and kind of just see how we flow, and then, you know, right away, you know, we hit it off, and then I introduced Gray Maynard to her and got Gray involved in this camp. So it's really hit home for us. It's been nice.
What do you think that fight? You know, one thing that jumps out to me about her record is that she can be very successful going to decision. She's won 10 of 14 fights by decision, and Shevchenko is a fighter who, you know, has a Muay Thai specialty, but also a finite gas tank at times. I mean, how much of a factor do you see that possibly being?
Huge. And, you know, when we look at Valentina, in my mind, we're talking pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. She's unbelievable. You know, there's not very many holes in her game at all. So for us, I think we have to be disruptive. We have to break her rhythm, and Valentina wants harmony in the pocket. Right, she wants to be clean, and we have to find ways to break that harmony. Be a little disruptive in sprinkling in the wrestling game, the clinch game, hit her in places she might not expecting to be hit, and really be grimy for 5 rounds. We have to find ways to cut her. We have to find ways to hit her to the body. We have to try to chop her down a little bit, but hit her from the feet to the floor, score the takedowns when we can. So it has to be a grimy fight for 5 rounds, and we know that we have to be at the top of our game to beat this one.
Jessica was a fighter who really benefited from the UFC creating the women's flyweight division, because, you know, she had mixed results at bantamweight, and this was another thing we talked about this past week, was how long she had waited and hoped that the UFC was going to create that flyweight division, and since they created it, she is a perfect 3-0. It seems like if she's going to make a move, it's a good time to, camp-wise, it's a good time to do it, because she was able to go ahead and get solidified at 125 and have success there. So it's not like she's having to go new camp, new division, new everything.
Right.
You know, there's got her footing underneath her a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's been it. It's been nice having her for 12 weeks. And it was funny, we said something at practice today, like, we leave on Tuesday. I was like, oh shit, like, it's coming up. Like, you feel like you've just been in that camp for so long that now the end of the road is coming up for this fight, and it's a week away.
Yeah. Yeah, you know? I've only ever fought at home. I'm going to be having my second fight at home as well, so I don't know about all this road travel.
The road travel, yeah.
Frank tells me sometimes it's a distraction. He likes to take the fight on the road because you don't have as much going on at home. But
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes when you fight on the road, this goes with me now towards the end of my career. Towards the beginning of my career, I liked fighting at home because I knew where the restaurants were the week of the fight. You know, eating and all the schematics of just keeping everybody in the train moving in the right direction, I thought was easier at home. But then after a while, I was like, man, this whole ensemble of individuals, you know, one thing is that you'll always have your close friends and family that'll fly to a fight, and they never seem to be the distraction. But when you fight someone where it's convenient for people to be, and they're kind of like not really there, but it's like, well, it's cool, I want to be a part of this now. Right. You know, those people, it's easy to shake off if you're traveling. Then they're not going to make that kind of commitment. And those people that aren't going to make that kind of commitment, I don't want them there anyways, to be honest with you, the week of the fight. So that's why I always found it's easier to notice that, like, I'm not having to buy as many tickets when I'm flying somewhere to fight, because it's like, hey, I'll get you a ticket to the fight, but you got to get your own airplane ticket. You know, I'm not flying you in and paying for your hotel room. And then all of a sudden it shakes loose. Again, if someone's here in Vegas, it's like, well, I want a ticket to the fight. I'm all, dude, you know, I haven't talked to you in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on spouses coming on the road?
You know what? It's such an individualistic thing, to be honest with you. I've seen it in some situations where you have a spouse that knows how to be. Look, a spouse in a fight relationship is an offensive lineman in football. You are a complete support role. You'll never get your name in the newspaper, and you should never have a picture of you, except for maybe holding up the guy that you helped score a touchdown. And they're talking about that guy, not you.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, and so when there's spouses that understand,
every woman likes to be compared to an offensive lineman. Boy, Frank, you're a real romantic.
Or husband and men. The spouse, you are a support role. You are not the superstar, and sometimes, certain spouses have a hard time with that
taking
concept.
that back seat.
It's like, hey, this ain't about you, not about your feelings. If you have an issue right now, the fight's on the 2nd. You could talk to us on the 3rd. You know what I mean? Like, until then, you gotta bite your lip and just and walk to the back. They might all jump into a car and forget about you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, but the fighter got in the car. You know what I mean? Like, call a fucking Uber, figure it out. Don't be a burden on the fighter. Going, well, what the fuck? No one's even thinking of me. You're right. No one is thinking about you.
Right. Exactly.
And that's just the way it has to be.
Yeah, no, that makes
so. If you have a spouse that understands it, then they're an asset to the program, right? They could be one of the greatest assets to the fighter as far as keeping them focused, keeping them calm, and on point. But if and being one more helpful hand of, we got a photo shoot. Oh shit, we're gonna be here an hour longer. I'll go run and get. What do they need to eat? Okay, I'll go and get the food.
Probably depends on how long the spouse has been around too. Are we talking about a Pro Bowl veteran or somebody off the practice squad? You know what I mean?
Well, and I've seen girls.
Was that
and
good?
Guys
I kept the football analogy going.
Yeah.
We're keeping it. I'm glad you're able to help float it.
Yeah.
I've seen people jump right on board and get it. But I've seen people in long distance and long-term relationships that there was a certain balance or hierarchy to the relationship. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden now the person they're with has made it. All of a sudden it's like, you're not equals anymore right now. Not this week.
Right.
You're not. Your spouse is the priority. And I've seen relationships where it's a problem. And so on the flip side of that, in my opinion, they can also be the most detrimental thing to a fighter. So it's really a make or break you thing. Like either like, hey, this is really going to be a help, or it's going to be a hindrance. And the shitty part is that usually here's the problem. Is that if they're a hindrance, the fighter's not going to fucking probably pull the trigger to say, hey, keep your ass at home. I'm going to go fight. If they do, fucking there's no problems whatsoever.
Right.
Usually the problem is if they're a hindrance, and also they have the type of relationship where the fighter ain't going to say shit, eat shit, and be stressed out trying to take care of their spouse. And then the head coach or general manager, whoever, is the one that needs now to say, hey, you buddy, we've trained for 12 weeks for this shit. So-and-so can stay home, They're the one that needs to make the call, but they're only on the payroll, so they're expendable.
Right.
So the person who can't be fired, the spouse, the fighter, needs to say something, but yet it falls on the coaches, and it's like, what a fucking problem for you. It's like, well, if I piss off the spouse of my fighter,
then I'm fucked.
I'm fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because then we might make it to this fight, and all of a sudden afterwards, we're like, yeah, we're gonna find a different gym. I'm like, yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah.
See, Eric, I'm pretty good at sniffing out crazy through trial and error. So
You've been a lot of crazy.
Yeah, a lot of these camps, bring in nutritionists and movement coaches and everything. I'm thinking I make myself available as a dating coach.
There you go.
And I come in and I either ordain the relationship or I say, no, move on.
Yeah.
These two no good.
No, Frank nailed it on the head. I mean, it's just that you can add to it, or you can be the detriment to a camp, and you can see it. You can see it right away. Man or woman, doesn't matter. The fighter, what's going on at home right away.
Yeah.
I've seen fighters. I remember one time I watched Randy fight. I think it was his second fight with Chuck, and he looked off. Now you got to think, there's not many fighters. If I sit there, I'm going to put a list of guys that are just mentally fucking tough guys that are, they'll fucking stand in the fire, grind their way through, and Randy Couture's names will probably be on everybody's list. You might not put him first, but for you not to say that he's not one of the more mentally tough guys to ever fight to compete in MMA, you're silly, right?
Right.
And I watched him, and then afterwards I found out, like, oh, he's going through a divorce. I'm like, oh, well, that fucking makes sense, because that's not the Randy I'm used to seeing.
Right.
And then talking to guys that train with him for us, like, yeah, man, like, you should have seen it 10 days. Like, everything was fucking off. You know what I mean? Everything was off. Things that Randy normally does, like a deloading from 10 days out, they're like it was like 5 days before, and Forrest says, he goes, hey, he wanted to work with me, and all of a sudden it's like, this is not the pace that you normally work out 5 days before. He's trying to kill me.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, this is a guy whose mind is just preoccupied with
other shit going on.
Yeah. And if it could fuck up Randy Couture, it could fuck up anybody. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What is the? All right, this brings to mind a question I've pondered periodically. You get a lot of fighter-on-fighter dating relationships, especially now that we see so many professional women fighting in MMA. Think about this for a second. I'm going to come back to you, Eric. I want to ask you what the most random profession you've ever seen the spouse or significant other of a fighter do for a living. okay, we're not both fighters. Not only are we both not fighters, you find out what that other person did, and you're like, well, that is really random. I'll give you an example while you're thinking. The Miller brothers, Jim Miller, Dan Miller. Do you know they have a third brother?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Any idea what he does? Veterinarian.
Right.
I just think I found that interested in talking to them because
Those are
I'm
two
like,
different paths of
right.
life.
yeah, you know, like these two absolutely did the same thing. This guy was more interested in caring for animals.
Fixing bones instead of breaking them.
Exactly. Does anything come to mind? Like you ever I'm still waiting to meet like the female fighter who introduces me to her boyfriend, the sommelier.
Right,
or the florist.
I'm trying to. I know Laura Sanko when she fought. I believe her husband is like he invented something that has to do with farming and something. I mean, this guy's brilliant, but like it's one of those things too where you're talking about was well, I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, he seemed normal. Right. You know what? I had not met him. We've had her on the show, and although I don't recall her telling me specifically what he did, I got the distinct impression that he was like a legitimate guy.
I do find it.
Yeah.
Interesting when you have so many of these high-level female fighters now, and their spouses aren't fighters at all. Just normal guys. A lot of them don't even train. And it really, I always just wondered what that's like because I mean, talk about just throwing an atypical relationship on its head. You're like, oh, you know, you train. You think one of us is going to grab a gym bag and go punch someone in the face. And it's the woman of the group. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just my old holdover, you know, just, you know, old-fashioned thinking. But that part still, sometimes like I look at guys, I'm just like, I wonder what that feels like to be dating somebody that realistically whoop your ass. I mean, especially if she has some skills. Grappling. Yeah. And you don't, I don't give a shit now. Now you're fucked. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, wow, that is just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that feels to know that, you know, I couldn't imagine if me and Mrs. Mir squared off and I'm like, oh shit, I better not fucking get mad right now because if she loses her shit, you know what I mean? She might choke me the fuck out, you know what I mean?
Right. My brother's a video game engineer.
Oh.
So fucking nerd.
Yeah.
You know, complete on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But that was, as a kid growing up, that was everything that all the time he wanted to write code.
And that's kind of how you guys grew up as kids too? Like were you more athletic?
And he was athletic, like he played a lot of soccer and stuff, but I mean this kid was just brilliant on a different level and like would do like code on the fucking door, you know, in Sharpie, and you're like, what is this kid writing? Like, what's he doing? He actually wrote the like code on Call of Duty on how like you would shoot a gun and how it would kill somebody in Singapore.
Oh wow.
Like he wrote that code. So I mean he's been programming forever, and I was like, you know, you're a fucking dork. He's a millionaire now.
Yeah. I wonder if like it would be interesting if your paths ever cross to the point that he makes you like the most desirable corner man in the UFC video game. So like he knows how to get in there and do that.
He has my daughter, like he made his own video game. So my daughter's like a character in his video game.
Oh,
yeah,
cool. That's
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But we you know we gloat about each other's careers. Like I'm so proud of him and what he does, and he's proud of me and what I do, and we're just on the opposite end of the spectrums. You know,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I like about training at Xtreme Couture now is as I'm running my 27th and 28th lap around the mats, I always run by and look at the little dry erase board to see what fights are coming up. And we mentioned Jessica I. Who else is coming up that we need to keep an eye on from Xtreme Couture?
Well, Vinny Magalesh makes his PFL debut again for season 2. That'll be June 6th. That'll be in Long Island. So unfortunately, I won't be able to corner for that fight, obviously, because I have Jessica. But Vinny's been looking good. Mm-hmm. You know, he has some shit to prove. You know, we made it all the way to the finals and we couldn't get it done. So in my mind, like the last couple months, he's been in there busting his ass, and he has something to prove now.
So impressive what that PFL has done, and you know, it's over there on ESPN Plus now. You can watch it if you got the app. And you know, admittedly, PFL was, you know, from World Series of Fighting to the progression to PFL to the tournament system they set up and everything. I mean, obviously we follow all this stuff because it's our jobs, but I don't want to say slow to the party, but I was kind of like, all right, well, I'm keeping an eye over there. And they won me over. I mean, it's the quality, the production is great, the quality of the fights are great. It's funny, I was talking to, a couple of weeks ago, I guest hosted MMA Junkie, and we had Yves Edwards on, who's doing their play-by or color commentary. Yeah, and I asked him, I said, was there a moment when you, like a defining moment where you looked at PFL and you're like, man, this is this is on another level. And he goes, yes. He goes, when everybody got paid. He goes, when they did the $1 million, whatever that, the tournament. And he goes, when I actually saw everybody cash their checks and everything, he was like, yeah.
It changed my life. I had Lance Palmer last year. We went 5-0. We won a title. He won $1 million. I had Vinny, made all the way to the finals. So financially, what these guys were able to do for us as coaches, took very good care of us. Yeah. But also I could put that on my resume now that I was involved with Lance. We had 5-0, head coaches camp, and we won a title. And moreover, Ray being Ray Seffo, what we see behind the scenes, he's a fighter's guy. So he takes care of those guys. We had a guy miss weight. Usually, sometimes I think in the UFC, I've seen guys if it happened a few times where a guy misses weight and the other fighter makes weight. The other fighter didn't get paid because there's no fight. Ray was paying their guys their show money and their fucking fight and their person. So the guys are getting paid. And you see that, and you don't see that in a lot of organizations, but you do in the PFL.
Very nice. And then I know coming up, is it Minnesota that
Dan
on that card?
Yeah. Oh, Dan Ige will be in South Carolina. That'll be on June 22nd. Yeah. He'll be fighting Kevin Aguilar. Very, very tough opponent. I think he's won 7 of his last fights, 7-0 in his last fights. I think he's 3-0 in the UFC. So very, very tough kid. And again, like Dan's one of those guys now where we went out to London, finished the fight in 50 seconds, got the $50,000 bonus, changed his life too. Just bought his first house. So starting to see these young kids that we came up through in the system now making their noise in the UFC. So Dan will fight, and then we go out to Minnesota with Emily Whitmire, Joe Benavidez, and then Francis has been training with us too, so he'll be on that card now. Very
nice. All 3. That's going to be a busy night for Xtreme Couture with everybody on that card. All right, so now how about an update with Kevin Lee? Came up short against Rafael dos Anjos. That was a grinder of a fight, and you kind of figured it would be. How's he doing, and do we know about how quickly we may be seeing him back in action?
He's been doing great. Talked to him actually yesterday. We were afraid he might have broke his leg in the fight. Everything panned out okay. I think once the dust kind of settled, he understood that, man, like, he put on a good show. He fought the number 3 ranked welterweight in the world, jumped right in the deep end right away and fought hard. There are some things that I think that as a team that we should have changed up. We should have helped him understand that, hey, you're winning a lot of those striking exchanges. You don't have to stay on the wrestling as much as you were. It was a 5-round fight. We could have pulled off on the gas pedal a little bit more. And I think that's just kind of come new in the division. He wasn't sure how that pace is going to set for him. He was pushing a little too hard. The other point to that is I feel like he was overcompensating for what we didn't do in the Ali Quinta fight. I feel like he should have wrestled more in the Ali Quinta fight. He was beating himself up over that. And in the RDA fight, he was pushing a little too hard to get that takedown. Probably could have struck a little bit more with him.
Yeah, and that's a tough guy to do that with.
Exactly.
With RDA. Yeah.
Exactly.
I watched the little build up on that, the countdown type show that ESPN Plus did, and one thing that stuck out to me, he's got a place here in Vegas, and they've got one of those mobile basketball hoops outside the house. Those are very controversial with my homeowners association. I'd like to know if that's causing him any problems.
Any issues?
Yeah, that's a hot button issue. People have set those up in the neighborhood. Boy, there's some old blue hairs who do not like those.
Yeah, so and his brother will be fighting tomorrow on your guys' show. So Keith,
okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
Keith will be fighting tomorrow.
Right. Very nice. All right, I tell you what, let's talk a couple of fighting headlines. Then we're going to talk some dogs. If our canine related guest is here. Okay, good. We'll bring her up in a minute, and we'll tell you why we're doing that here in a second. We always like talking about good dogs here on Phone Booth Fighting. All right, a couple of quick things, Frank. This weekend, Alexander Gustaffson takes on the doppelganger for our own beloved James Horn. I'm talking about Anthony Smith. And light heavyweight attraction. Kind of a weird fight to me, Frank, in the sense that you got a couple of guys who have come up short against John Jones recently, are certainly in Gustafsson's case, he's sort of competing to be at or remain the second best light heavyweight in the division now that Cormier's out of it at heavyweight. But there was because of the first performance that Gustafsson had against Jones, we carried that around for a couple of years, and we were like, boy, what's it going to be like? Maybe he won that fight. What's it going to be like if they get in there again? And then we saw the rematch, and that was pretty one-sided. Same thing happened with Anthony Smith and John Jones. So it's I mean, it'll be a fun fight to watch. They're both long, lanky guys, but it's kind of got that glass ceiling feeling a little bit to me.
Actually,
like
I don't think it was
what they're
one-sided.
competing for.
Just go back to the Gus fight.
Yeah.
I actually saw, if you listen to Jackson's commentary, and if you look at the look on John's face and his demeanor, and obviously I've trained with him and I know him better than some.
Yeah.
He was not going well for him until he got the takedown.
You're talking about the second fight.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like he was backing up, throwing kicks. Like he was comfortable, but he's not used to having that many shots stopped.
Yeah.
And it looked like he was having a hard time getting Gus down.
Yeah.
And I can see, you could see Jackson tell him, hey, you're forcing the takedown. It will come.
Right.
Relax. I think we saw a little bit more of a, tense, because Gustafsson is the better boxer. And for him not to get him down, I saw a little bit of urgency. I don't even think I would call it panic. A little urgency, and that's why Jackson had to pull him back, like, hey, relax.
You're okay.
The takedown will come. As soon as he got the takedown, it was he mauled him. John's wrestling is just phenomenal, and once he threw one leg in, he crushed him. But I saw just a mistake from Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know what I mean? Like, if they fought a third time, I'm not saying that, I know that you're like, well, he's beat him twice. I'm like, still right now, that fight is still not an easy fight for John. Where he got him, he exposed him like, once I got top position, he couldn't get out from underneath of me. But as far as other aspects of the game that Gustafsson brings, he's still a challenge. He's not a walk in the park for John.
That's interesting. I mean, rare has it been that we've seen the same outcome in two fights and been wanting to see a third, but that could be a candidate. That could be one of those where we might want to see that. So I think in that case, there's definitely a lot on the line for Gustafsson in this fight against Anthony Smith. Do you think Anthony Smith offers any particular challenge for Gustafsson in this fight?
No, I think actually Gustafsson, who also has good wrestling. Remember, he took down Cormier.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he did it through the fact that he's such a good striker. He set the
He
shot
set it
up.
up.
But for MMA purposes, he's got ability to put, and I think that the fact that I mean, has it been 4 months since his last fight with John?
Anthony Smith, right about, isn't it? I have to look it up, but it's very recent. Yeah,
and again, I mean, John's a really good wrestler, but Smith didn't even his hips didn't move the right way. It wasn't even like he was panicking the proper way of, oh, look, he's trying to get his hips out. He's trying to create he's like, wow, he's not defending. Like, wow. I mean, people are making jokes. Like, did the guy train any wrestling? So the fact that he's so bad at that aspect of the game, I think that Gustafsson's just going to take him down.
That fight was only in March.
Was it?
Seemed like it was further away than that.
Yeah.
No, I was actually, that's why I figured that maybe, I was going to ask you, is this an injury replacement that Smith's jumping in for? Because I thought that was a pretty quick turnaround for him.
Yeah, not that I don't have to look that up. If it was, let's see, I don't see any mention of an injury replacement unless I'm drawing a blank on what that fight was supposed to be. But yeah, it just freaks me out how much he looks like James Horn. Yeah. Do you know James, Frank's main sparring partner? If
I
you've
met
ever
him a
met
few
him or
times,
not? Yeah. Not only does he look like him, and they're basically like the same size and build, but when they put Anthony Smith on the commentary, I was like, man, he sounds like
guy.
him. Yeah, he sounds like him.
Now, credit to Gustafsson. I remember when Phil Davis beat him in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And went out and started training with Phil, got his wrestling together, and it's something now is kind of an afterthought, right? I mean, that was the thing with Gustafsson was, let's take him down, let's look to submit him, and his wrestling got so much better. And really, what it is to me with his range and his length, he uses that lead arm frame very well. He frames guys off of his chest. It's hard to get in on him, and he boxes you up at that range. He's beautiful. I mean, what he's done has been beautiful. Now he's starting to set up his own takedowns off that stuff.
How about let's shift gears a little bit outside the cage. A crazy story in the world of Yoel Romero, one of your fellow Cubans, Frank. Did you hear about this? No. Yoel Romero sued the supplement company that gave him the tainted supplement that caused him to be flagged by USADA and won $27 million. Now, I'm sure that is $27 million against a company that, if they have not filed for bankruptcy, they're at the courthouse right now doing it. But still, moral victory and kind of a rare, I don't know if you call it feel good, but at least like redemption. Yeah, that's absolutely the word, redemption.
Yeah, I'm happy for him because, I mean, the guy is just a physical, he's gifted, man. The guy's genetically just I remember talking to one of his managers, Abe Cowan. They said they went in there, and one of the clinics that wanted, checking him out, his health. They did some kind of muscle test on him, and they said, well, he has basically, biologically, he was like 19 years old.
Wow.
That's just the guy is just,
genetic freak.
And he trains they said, man, the guy trains like 3 or 4 hours a day, 7 days a week. He doesn't take a day off. They're like, he'll be in the gym on, fight Saturday and be in the gym Monday.
I know some fighters who've been described as mentally 19 years old, but you're saying biologically.
The physical part of them. Yeah. So I'm glad, because, really, for you to be innocent and be told that you're doing that, that is a shitty thing, especially because he already looks the part.
He looks like an action figure. That help.
So it's like, it doesn't help his cause, where you're like, it's like, hey, guess what? The problem is that everybody that sees someone built like Yo, they're like, oh, he's on juice.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, before juice was a big deal, there were guys that did look like that, but it was 1 in a million.
Right.
Now, every guy at the gym that has access to a clinic can improve his genetics. So it's not as common, where you say uncommon.
Right.
So I always tell people, like, hey, man, there are still guys out there that are freaks of nature. You know what I mean? Like, relax. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody's juiced to the gills. So the fact that he gets that redemption to be able to prove, and the other guys now, when he's fighting, it's like you kind of pull that punch away from them. Bisping, really, it was just
on it.
It was a sore spot to go ahead and just thrust into. I get it. Take advantage. It's combat. But now that's off the table. I don't think you'll ever see $1 because But as far as the redemption, as far as the moral victory, awesome, man.
Yep.
And then also too, as far as the supplement companies, I'm glad, because people don't realize that supplement companies fall outside the FDA.
Yes.
So they can put all kinds of, and I've talked to supplement companies. I've had guys even, and I remember one conversation more recent where I was talking to this guy, and I was like, hey, you know who I am, right? Like, I've had a problem with this. It's like, well, what we do is that for the first 6 months, we'll put shit in there that will really get results, and then we don't put it on the label, but then all it does is everybody thinks it's awesome,
right?
And then we take it out, and then we'll run it for another 2 or 3 years, and we'll make money off it, because guys are still gonna, once they have that thing, that they'll still take it, and then they're gonna tell everybody about it. And I'm just like looking at them, I'm like, asshole,
right?
Do you not get fucking Wikipedia, motherfucker? Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the guy to fucking talk to about this. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't doing that.
It's a Wild West, and that shows you.
But they do it because there's there has been no repercussions really.
Yeah.
Right.
They get found out. Oh, you got some shit in your fucking supplements,
right?
And they okay, we'll find that company because it's some corporation, and then we'll pull out and start up a new one. They don't even have to rechange the factory of the labs.
Right.
Just, all right, cool. Now we're Beta Male, you know what I mean? And we were Charlie Male, you know what I mean? Like, okay, fuck it, switch the names, And it's such a prolific issue going on right now in that company. So hopefully now that people seeing this, it's like, oh shit, That's why I hope somehow it doesn't just go after the company, but the people running it. I know that when they do corporations, they have that layer of safety.
The LLC and the
right, but somehow like there has to be some way to make it to where, okay, if that's a problem, you work for a company, like you can't open one up for 3 years or something. You know what I mean? Like, all right, financially you're safe, but you can't go back to you can't just change the billboards and fucking open up shop on Monday like it's business as usual.
It's a great case to be made for regulation. And this headline, Frank, this one actually hits close to home for us on several fronts. It involves Uriah Faber. Uriah Faber is almost exactly, and I mean exactly, the same age as you, Frank. We found that out because a couple of weeks ago at your birthday party, we had a little video montage of people wishing you happy birthday, and Uriah Faber provided a greeting and mentioned that his birthday was coming up like the next week, and he was about to turn 40, just like you.
Yeah, I think I'm like a week old.
Yeah, I think you're like a week older or something like that than he is. He is coming out of retirement. He's going to fight Ricky Simone in Sacramento. Frank, thoughts on a fellow 40-year-old, in this case, a guy who actually retired and is ready to come back out of retirement?
Well, I wasn't surprised because it really wasn't. I thought most guys, age does have a hindrance, but I feel like in MMA it's more injuries that end up sidelining guys and just the lack of motivation. And I didn't understand when he retired. I was like, well, he didn't seem like a really injured guy. Right. His lifestyle's so healthy. You never really see the guy in off season put on 40 pounds and be fucking heavy. We're like, well, that can lead to a shorter career that you see some guys. Joe Stevenson, man, love the guy, great guy, but I think one thing that hurt his career was that, you know, the guy would be 205 and then 12 weeks before a fight cut down and make weight. It's like, Jesus Christ. His whole camp was about making weight, you know. We're favored, man. The guy's fucking like, he's just a healthy motherfucker. He takes care of himself, so makes total sense that he's capable of coming back, and I still think he's going to be really dangerous, and he's definitely ahead of the curve of what people would consider a 40-year-old.
That's a pretty rare thing, Eric, when you see the guy who, you know, I mean, the old story is you see a lot of people who, okay, you know, they probably should have retired sooner than they did. It is a rare story when you see the guy who's like, they retire, and then when you hear they're coming back a year or two later, you're like, no, okay.
Actually, because he made that video before my birthday, he's actually older than me.
Oh, okay.
He's by 10 days.
Nice.
Oh, there you go.
He turned 40 on the 14th.
What was the quick aside, because we haven't talked too much about this on the show, if at all. Mikey was there as well. Our producer, Porno Mikey, is back with us.
Gave me a good gift.
What was? Oh, he did.
Ammunition. Can't go wrong giving a guy bullets.
That's what I figured. I'm like, you can never have enough ammo.
Never have enough ammo, dude.
Frank, and I'm like, yeah, you can never have enough.
You gave him ammo. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You kind of out. See, he hadn't said anything about my gift, so he probably liked yours better than mine. Did you like
stuck out my
mine?
head. What was yours one again?
Damn it.
Which one was it?
Damn it.
It's the bread maker.
It was Paul Stanley's new book.
Oh, the book. That's right.
It was his
I
motivational
did.
book.
I like that one a lot. Thank you.
You know what? You read it because, and I am not one to normally go for this.
No,
kind of
after
thing.
I met Paul, man,
Yeah.
anything he writes down, that guy is a fucking walking sage.
Everything in that book that we heard in his everything that we heard in his living room is in that book.
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal read. Yeah,
Paul Stanley of Kiss.
Okay.
dude,
Eric.
that guy is like, I mean, there's not a lot of times where I sit, like, people, almost everybody, even the biggest fucking idiot, usually knows something that I can learn from. You know what I mean?
sure.
Like, you know, 90% of their fucking brain's full of shit, but
Right.
there's like something that they heard or they did that they don't even maybe know they're holding on to a golden ticket.
It might
I'm
even be what not to do.
yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
I can learn to go, okay, well, I know now that only
to do.
solidifies why I don't do that. But the whole time fucking Paul spoke, I was just like, the only time any of us, I think, interjected was to ask a question.
Right.
There was no, like, you know, like some people have a conversation like, oh, well, let me add to that. There was no fucking adding to what he had to say. It was like, wow. It encompassed, that's why I'm looking at him like, man, if you started up a church,
Yeah,
I'm in.
I'd fucking be a member, bro.
I'm
like,
in.
Jesus.
Greatest.
Like, simple terms, really to the knot. I mean, he would just say, I mean, like, even the point where, like, you know, we talk about, like, well, if somebody around me is a certain type of person, I don't like you or dislike you. I just understand that's the kind of person you are, and I keep you in that position. You know, if a person's a peach, I'm not mad for you being an apple. You know, or you know, if they're not an apple and they're a peach, or just real simple, like,
Right.
yeah, you know, like, hey, a peach has its purpose,
Right.
but this person, you need an apple, and this guy's a peach. You know what I mean? Just deal with it.
He said something in that book because I read the book. I mean, it took me 12 hours, read the whole thing. It's not a real thick book or anything. But he said something in there that, like, I just epiphany went off. He was talking about, it was predicated against the fact that the original 4 members of KISS, he and Gene were the hard workers, and the other 2 guys didn't have the business acumen that they had. But what he said was, he said, in any partnership or conglomerate or whatever, and maybe we can draw this analogy to MMA, you know, assistant coaching, all that. He goes, I don't expect everybody to do equal work. I expect you to do your 100%.
Right.
He goes, your 100% may not be the
Wow.
exact amount that I do.
And that's fucking deep.
Yeah.
Wow, like, that's like, whoa.
Yeah, he goes, I'm only mad at you if you're not doing your 100%. So the analogy was like, okay, well, you may not be the principal songwriter, but if you're the guy in the band who knows how to fix the transmission on the van, great, do that 100% of the time.
Yep.
That's why we have you.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
that made total sense to me because I was thinking, people fight way too much about, well, you're not doing my version of 100%. You're not mirroring me. And his point was, maybe everybody shouldn't mirror everybody. Maybe you bring a unique skill set that isn't the primary focus of what we do. But if we didn't have your secondary 100%, we'd be in trouble.
Well, how many times, like, when you hear guys go sparring, hey, Frank, let's go 50%. Well, his 50% might be different than my 50%, right?
Yeah.
So it's all kind of that different
Yeah.
gauge of what are you contributing?
You know what really strikes me with that? Like, I think that's the problem we have. We have many issues, you know, and again, I love being an American. I ain't leaving this fucking country anytime soon, right? but obviously criticism, you always want to make things better. I think socially, that's an issue a lot of us have. I feel essentially, going back to a football analogy, everybody wants to be the fucking quarterback.
Right.
And as a society, I need mechanics. I need garbage men. And you're not a less position than me. You're just a different position than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, people got to be police officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors. I think we need all these individuals. And everybody at home, so many of our youth, I think, want to be famous, or they want to be a movie star. They want to be a musician or a fighter. It's like, I want to be Instagram famous. And it's like, hey, you know what? The guy that changes my oil in his car is an important role in society. If I didn't have those guys, I don't fucking,
absolutely, the carpenters.
Yeah, the guys building my house, putting in the plumbing. I mean, my oldest son now is phenomenal at doing granite. You know what I mean? That's what he is now, a granite. He comes to your house. He's a guy that they do all the cutting and filing and stuff, and he's fucking good at it. He makes shit. That's what he's good at. You know what I mean? Like, and too many people, I think, really just don't know how to stay in what is their 100%. It's like, hey, well, what are you good at? I mean, not everybody's fucking built to be a fucking basketball player. Not everybody has the talent to be a fucking rapper, or not every girl's hot. You're not sexy. I'm sorry. At best, you're a 6. Like,
it's like the offensive lineman analogy.
Yeah,
that
we need offensive
you need
linemen.
To that end, here's something I once said to Deion Sanders that pissed him off. Never told this story before.
Oh, you got to meet Deion Sanders?
We had a very contentious relationship when he was in Dallas. Yeah. I don't go for the phony God stuff. And he and Michael Irvin were the worst.
Oh, I can imagine.
They were the worst.
I can imagine Irving. Well, because we know Irving. Come on.
Think about it. You know Michael Irvin, and you know me. Now, how do you think that kind of phony
Not well,
with
man.
me?
Not well.
No. So, and I would call him out on it. I would always tell him, I said, listen, be a sleazebag if that's what you're going to, but be it. Don't, own
Embrace
it.
it.
Just be what
Don't
you
fucking
are.
hide in the bushes about it.
But
I never understood that. I think people, I don't know, maybe the 90s was different, but I think nowadays when people embrace being who they are, I think our society's okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, the only time I ever noticed that people create friction is when someone tries, like, okay, for example, Anthony Johnson's had his issues, publicly, right? For as far as domestic violence and stuff. Yeah. Issues, right? But I don't think people give him as hard of a time as they give John.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Who's had, also issues happened in his personal life. Yeah. But it's because, I don't know, Anthony Johnson never comes up and acts holier than thou.
Right.
He doesn't quote, John 3:16. Like, he's not doing anything in that way, trying to pretend he's not something other than just a normal fucking guy.
I believe the verse is Philippians 3:16.
Oh, is it Philippians? Sorry.
Go ahead, Frank.
I'll give you a prime example, and I love the guy to death. He's one of my good buddies, is Mazdaval. George goes and sticks the guy in the mouth in London, 3-piece and a soda, and we don't hear much about it. I mean, he got praised for it. It was keeping it real.
Because you're just kind of being what you are.
Yeah. But if you think of it, flip that's Kobe or somebody else.
Yeah.
My offensive lineman analogy, though, what I said to Deion was, he once said, he took the exact opposite approach of what you were saying about the importance of a supporting staff. And in his typical Deion Sanders way, said, sometimes I wish the line would just lay down on the field so I could see the field. Basically implying that his own teammates that were blocking for him were in his way. And I said to him,
I wish you would have been able to meet Emmitt Smith then, because if Emmitt's anything like how he spoke publicly, I mean, the guy I think every season bought his whole offensive line like Rolexes, right? I mean, like, he understood. He goes, hey, I'm a good running back, but I'm a great running back because these motherfuckers are one of the best offensive linemen in history.
What I said to Deion that he didn't appreciate when he said he wished that his whole team would just lay down on the field, I said, well, maybe they should try that. See what happens. He didn't like to get hit.
Yeah, hell no.
Yeah,
no, he did not.
All right, that's a shit, man. Fuck, man. I don't like team players like that.
Right.
I got good stories from the old Dallas days. We'll do some more of those at some point in the future. But right now, we got to talk about good puppy dogs. Is Genevieve down there? Okay, come on up.
No, she got here like 4:30.
Well, it was very nice of her to be on time, and of course, no, you stay there.
Hey, hang on, man.
Yeah.
Unless you got to
don't
be
have to
somewhere.
run,
I'll slide over. No,
okay?
I was giving a room.
Come on up, Genevieve. We're going to put you right here. This is Genevieve Minter, who
just because I got the weigh-ins at 5:20.
5:20.
I got to walk out.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. All right, come on, Genevieve. Now, I have to explain to everybody who Genevieve is to me. She did a thesis, call it a thesis, right?
It's a dissertation.
A dissertation. Now you can tell.
What's the difference?
Yeah, what is the difference? Let's start there.
Master's level uses a thesis, and
Yeah.
doctoral level uses a dissertation.
Okay, so this is for
you have to
PhD
write your
level.
thesis to get a PhD,
Yes.
right? But if you're not, it's a dissertation if you're a master's degree and you write about something.
No, so if you write a dissertation, you're doing
Oh,
it
no,
to
you're-
get a PhD, but you get the master's first, so you do a thesis. I already did my thesis years ago.
Oh, okay.
And
So then
next
once
step-
you're a PhD, you write dissertation.
Thesis is all
I can't even
news
fucking
to
pronounce
her.
the word properly.
Yeah, exactly. So she did a dissertation on pit bulls, and she contacted me through a friend because she knew that I had my dog Mel, who was one of the dogs rescued from Michael Vick's dogfighting ring, and that's one of the particular things you wanted to incorporate into your paper. So we did it. We met at the dog park and watched Mel play with all the other dogs. Mel's the dog that everybody wants their dog to play with. Frank has two little tiny things that
2.3 ounces and like 2.8.
yeah, and they love Mel. Eric, when
pounds, 8
when I
ounces.
bring Mel over to Frank's house, his two girls, the micro teacup Yorkies, they put on their best outfits and they compete for his attention. They're like dancing around in their tutus and stuff. But
We have more time. Let me tell you about the outfits.
yeah.
Oh, God.
But that's how Genevieve and I met. Of course, we always talk about dogs on the show, not only Frank's, but Porno Mikey over here. He's got 2 pit bulls. He just adopted a new one within the last year or so, right? I think it's been a year.
Yeah, almost
something
a year.
like that. Yeah. And you were listening a couple of weeks ago when we
I
had
was.
Jimmy Smith,
Yes.
MMA commentator, on. I don't know if you heard this story or not, Eric. Jimmy has 2 pit bulls. One FC offered him their color commentary gig.
Oh, I did.
He had to move to
Yeah.
Singapore. Couldn't take the pit bulls because they have a ban on pit bulls, and he said, "No thanks. These are my kids. Not going."
Yeah, same thing happened to Misha with her dog. The dog had to go in quarantine, I think, or quarantine for 2 months, I believe it was.
I didn't
Before.
know.
Yeah,
But hers probably. So hers isn't a pit, but
it's
she was
not a
able
pit.
to take the
yeah,
dog.
but the dog had to wait.
Oh, wow.
Before they can bring
And
it
they
into
just banned
to
I
pits.
couldn't
Singapore.
imagine
Completely
having my
over there.
dog for 2 fucking months.
Yeah,
No.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor animal. What's it thinking? You know?
right.
Well, let me kind of turn it over to you for a second, Genevieve, and just give us an idea of, because you interviewed a lot of pit bull owners, right, and a lot of people about this sort of thing, the stigmas that are involved and the misconceptions people have, and I know you've been listening to our podcasts and talk about this kind of stuff, so over to you.
Yeah, so I'm a sociologist, so I study social behavior. So that's the sort of angle that I come into this at. And I've always been a dog lover, and I used to work in animal hospitals, and I was young, so I didn't really differentiate between different breeds. And so pit bulls were just part of it. And I would always hear on the news about these horrible dogs, and I really wasn't seeing the correlation working as a veterinary assistant. That the vet is a scary place. It's cold. It smells funny. Some dogs go there to be put to sleep. It's a terrifying place. Dogs are most likely to bite. We have to muzzle them sometimes. And I really wasn't seeing that correlation with pit bulls. So I started writing about them as an undergrad, my thesis, and everything to get me into graduate school. And so now for my doctoral project, I was interested in, because if you look around today at the dog parks, everybody has a pit bull. Like, it doesn't matter the color of their skin, male, female, gay, straight, trans, Republican, Democrat, Roman Catholic, atheist, everybody's got a pit bull. So I'm trying to understand the cultural shift from the 80s, like what's happening? Are things changing? So what's going on? So I went out, and essentially, dissertation is big, and it covers a lot of different areas, but generally speaking, I wanted to understand the experience of the pit bull today. So what is it like for people who own pit bulls? How do they deal with the stigma? Do they have a stigma? So we did confirm that they do have stigmas. People tend to experience it differently based on certain social demographics, but probably around 90% of people still experience the stigma. So if this is the most dangerous dog in the world, banned in Singapore, it's banned in Montreal a couple of years ago, it's banned in many different places over in the UK. So why are people still willing to get such a dangerous dog? And, talking to them was quite humbling. I did probably spend about a year out in dog parks talking to different people, just kind of informally, what is it like? Do people treat you differently? And, and so we identified different strategies that people use when they have it. So some people are more confrontational than others. So the confrontational people, is how I was introduced to to Richard here, he would just mock people who made fun of him. You know, there was a woman on Fremont Street who had a little Yorkie, and she picked up her dog when she saw Tino's pit bull and was like, oh. So Tino picked up his pit bull and started running away. You know, and everybody just kind of laughed. And so you're seeing more of that. You're seeing more people just be like, you know, fuck off, you know, it's a dog. So, and then on the other end, people will lie about it. They'll say, oh, it's a Weimaraner, it's a boxer. They'll just try to deflect it. And then also people are starting to...
Those are the people who've had to fill out leases, by the way.
Yes, exactly. That's a whole other thing. And the legislation is also, you know, the sort of root of it all. So it's fun to study dogs and all that, but it actually affects people's lives. And I saw in the documentary that you were in, and then also with this guy in Singapore, like you can't change jobs. It's like a baseball player, right? Can't change jobs, and a lot of people who can't afford to say no are having to give up their dogs. So we have a huge pound overflux right now, and then the legislation is preventing people from being able to adopt them. So it's creating this sort of humanitarian crisis. And although overall dogs are being euthanized less and less, they're even starting to have programs where they ship dogs in animal shelters from big cities over to like small towns because it increases the adoption rates, but not for pit bulls and for cats.
Did you notice a big shift though with, I kind of noticed from just paying attention now to the subject because of Richard, it seemed like that documentary Champions seemed like during that era of what happened with
Vic.
Vic, that actually was a very positive outcome.
Absolutely. So Sports Illustrated, which covered a lot of that story, they had a cover in the late 1980s that was really scary. Beware of this dog, snarling pit bull. And then when the Vic case happened, all of a sudden the pit bull became victim. And it totally shifted it. And then Sports Illustrated had a brand new cover that came out, was like, you know, oh, these poor dogs, the victory dogs. And so I thought that might be changing, you know, people's perceptions generally, because they're saying, oh, these poor dogs, and then to see what can happen to them after they've been rehabilitated. And then you got all these Animal Planet shows, you know, pit bulls and parolees and, you know, Dog Whisperer and that sort of thing. So I was expecting a little bit more as far as the transition of the cultural era, but we're in the middle of the transition. So they're still struggling, but more and more people are like, it's just a dog.
So we're headed in a good direction.
Yeah, so I want to emphasize the breed bias cycle. So there's a fabulous work out here. It's called Pit Bulls, or the Pit Bull Placebo. It's a book by Karen DeLise. And she did a study of every single news article, because news articles are only about 150 years old.
Right.
Every dog attack article, and she saw that every 10 years or so, the dog in question tends to change.
Oh, yeah.
So the first dog ever discriminated against was the bloodhound, and then it was northern sled dogs. And
that sounds crazy now.
Yeah.
Bloodhound? I mean,
bloodhound.
If I broke into someone's house, I saw the bloodhound, I'm like, yeah, right, okay.
Because they did police work, and they traced the convicts and that sort of thing. But what happens with the cycle is, you know, eventually a dog will be showed in the media, which happened around early 1900s. So Rin Tin Tin with the German Shepherd, and even the Cocker Spaniel with Lady and the Tramp, the Dalmatian, even the Chihuahua with the Taco Bell commercial. So people see this dog in the media, and they're like, I want to get this dog. And they go and get it. And the key thing, what I'm finding, is that people just don't understand dog behavior. So the bites of that particular breed will increase. That particular breed then overflows the pound. Given time, it moves on to another breed. And this is what has happened for over 100 years now. But the pit bull is the first dog to ever have official legislation against it, which is another reason why I wanted to study it. And they've also been in the cycle the longest. So that is, you know, as far as a cultural thing, I'm trying to understand a little bit more about that, and that explains why they're overrunning the pounds right now.
I mean, I experienced that a few years back up in Reno, because I had Mel, and there was legislation in front of the Nevada State House to prevent breed ban legislation. So what was being considered was that statewide a city would not be able to enact a breed ban the way that, say, Denver has. So we went up, I took Mel, and we lobbied different state legislators and went office to office with him, and, you know, sat there and basically ear beat them until they agreed to pass the legislation. So now in Nevada, you actually can't do that. So like Las Vegas would be prohibited via the state constitution of saying, hey, we're going to have a pit bull ban or something, which is very important because a lot of people don't think, oh, well, why would we need that? Well, you don't need it until you do because somebody tries, to do it. But I always think that, and maybe this gets to, anything else you found. The thing she wrote was like this thick, by the way. Normally I try to find my own name in there, but I went ahead and read the whole thing. It was very impressive. Yeah, very exhaustive. But what did you find in terms of just the general, because I remember the question that you asked me that stood out, because you mentioned the stigmas earlier. You asked me if I experienced stigmas, and I was like, well, maybe I do and I don't notice them, but I just don't acknowledge them. Like, to me, a big part of that is how much am I going to let you stigmatize me? It's not going to be much fun if I don't acknowledge you stigmatizing.
The thing that sucks, though, about legislation against the dogs, it's counterproductive to what I think helps people understand the breed, which I've never really met anybody, and I'm sure they're out there, but I personally have never met somebody that has been exposed to pit bulls and been around them more than just passing one in the park, but had a brother that owned one, or whether a family had a member had one, that has anything against the breed. In fact, I saw it firsthand in my relationship with Jennifer. We've had dogs, and that's one breed of dog that we've never had. We've had about 10 dogs now throughout our 18-year relationship, and I remember for the longest time she was terrified. I've always wanted to get a pit. I was like, come on, let's go adopt a pit bull. Let's do this. No, because what if? I know that you're saying that they're sweet, but what if? And then you bringing Mel over, and then she actually got to be around a pit bull. It was like, oh, okay, then, when it's time for us again, then absolutely it's on the table. We can adopt one.
Yeah.
Because I saw you mention that on the other podcast, and that's actually a really common fear for people to be afraid of other people's pit bulls. Obviously, in the case of Mel, it's very possible. There's a couple different things. First, my question would be, because I thought it was you, and now I see that it's your wife who had that impression. And so my first question would be, if it was somebody else's Saint Bernard, would you have that same sort of what if?
No, because it's funny you say that, because actually we had Great Danes. So and that's a big animal.
This shows how the stigma really gets into the culture.
It didn't help that my brother had a dog that didn't, and one time the animal was at our house, and for whatever reason she spazzed out about a remote control car. Well, she was barking at it, and we all thought it was funny. Now, I wasn't responsible enough to realize it was really creating her to have a panic. I just thought it was funny. Like, wow, look, this animal's terrified of this race car. Well, all of a sudden, as soon as she had a chance to get to this race car, it took one movement, and the car literally exploded. I remember sitting there afterwards staring at it going, my wife might have a point. Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, that dog destroyed this $200 high-level, race car. I mean, it, boom, shook its head after it bit it. I mean, the thing just exploded. I was blown away. It almost tumbled. I'm like, wow, yeah, if that would have been my hand, I wouldn't have an arm anymore. I'm like, holy shit.
When I hear that story, and so going back to dog instincts, dogs have a chase instinct. It's very natural, and dogs are different, like people, so we don't know what he's been through. But most dogs, if they see that, are probably going to chase it. Now, as far as the damage, I do like to kind of find a connecting point between the pro pit bull and the anti-pit bull. Some dogs are bad, and some of them are pit bulls. Like, we can't come in and polarize the other side and be like, all these dogs are great. They're also extremely strong dogs.
Yes.
Like, there's no denying that.
I think that's the only point that she tried to make was going, any dog of any breed could bite you. The difference is that, if it was that breed, and she felt that way about Rottweilers, Doberman Pinschers, because I always thought Rottweilers are beautiful animals. Like, oh, we should go get a Rottweiler. They're beautiful. I think there's big teddy bears, and they're intimidating when I'm not in the house. Right. Someone knocks on the door, they see a Rottweiler. If they're looking for a house to invade, usually you just got put at the bottom of the list. You know what I mean? Like,
that's actually something I found with my female respondents who live alone, that they actually get the dog for that reason. Yeah, so they embrace the stigma while not agreeing with it at the same time.
Yeah, well, I got a bull mastiff, which to me, I told my wife, I'm like, that basically looks like a pit bull on steroids. You know what I mean? Like, he was a big, massive animal. And he was not a good dog. In fact, he was very dog aggressive. We don't know why. Something happened to him before we got to him. But we had a trainer come over, and it was just like, you can't have other animals around this animal. He's there, you know what I mean? Like, the amount of requirements it take to fix whatever happened to him. Wasn't aggressive towards people, but if your dog came into my house, he would try to kill it. Like, I mean, just instant turn into rage, and just blew my mind because he was a docile animal. We ended up giving him to a farm. Like, they had horses, and like, okay, out there, this, you know.
Some of them are definitely one dog households. What the literature is showing with the breed bans, there's actually a lot of bans that are being overturned because they're finding that it's not doing anything to affect the dog bites and rates. And so what they're doing is they're treating them as individuals. And we're seeing this all around the world. Italy, the Netherlands, all different countries are doing that. Another thing I wanted to point out to you, just to help you get a pit bull, there's a place in town called Postastic Friends.
Okay.
And what they are is they do enrichment training for dogs that are in shelters who need homes. And so they actually work with them on a daily basis. People sponsor them, and they train the dog before it's being put into the home.
Wow.
So if it would ease your comfort a little bit, I would point you in that direction.
She could get. We've actually been green lighted. We're good, you know. So the only thing would make it even better. The only thing is that right now my dog, the Thule, is extremely possessive over me, and again, we allow very poor behavior because she's 2 pounds, she's maybe 3 now, and so. But I don't know if I could get another dog without her being, because if the dog comes up and I want to pet it, she don't even let me touch my wife in front of her. You know what I mean? Like, she's just real. I'm hers.
She may just be the alpha dog in the house.
Right.
I mean, you know, I got 2 pit bulls. You know who runs my house? An old cat.
Right.
They don't cross her. Like, I mean, she runs. When we got Nala, our newer of the 2 pit bulls, I mean, that cat like took Nala aside. You know, you could tell it's like, listen, let me explain to you how this house runs.
Gonna work.
You know, yeah, they don't cross her. But no, it's exactly, you know, it's nature versus nurture, the old argument. And you know, I always think about. I remember I read an article one time. A guy wrote. He went back to his high school. And the concept of the article was since he had graduated, they had put in school uniforms. There was this whole debate about school uniforms. Does it help? Does it help the kids learn all this? And one thing he said in the article was, he was like, you know what? The teachers who were shit teachers back when I was in high school, I noticed they're still shit teachers, like the ones that were still around. The ones who were good teachers, they're still good teachers. So it kind of didn't make a difference.
I can speak to that. Yeah. My kids all go to private school, and they all have uniforms. And at first, I thought that was a great idea. I'm like, oh, it's one less thing for kids to fuck with each other about.
Right.
Trust me, all the kids still have lunch together and talk about whose shoes, who owns what iPhone. There's still a pecking order to what economical range. Yeah. You know, this guy's house. They actually talk about the house size.
Oh yeah.
Because so and so has a $25 million house. It's like, how do you know what size house his parents have?
Looked up the tax record.
Oh, they talk about it. Like,
up on my phone.
So kids still find a way to fucking be assholes. To me, it's like it was a waste of time. I mean, they still have the uniforms, but as far as what it prevented them all, I thought it would prevent that. Didn't do a fucking thing.
Now, Frank's got to get to his fight weigh-in, so we'll wrap here in a second. But I think what maybe we could do, Genevieve, is since Frank is on the pit bull path, maybe we need to bring you back on. And
definitely. We'll talk more about this. This is awesome.
Help him find. Because one other thing, though,
I'm interested about how because I like psychology.
Yeah.
How people's brains work with this.
So you'll have dog psychology, because humans and dogs have evolved together for hundreds of thousands of years, so our minds are very similar. And that's what it comes down to, is not understanding dog behavior. And that's because I had some respondents who had very good intentions with their pit bull, and it bit somebody because they don't know what they're doing. And so that's another, so people need to understand dog behavior, because dogs have exploded. I could talk about this forever, but it's post-World War. All of a sudden, breeds are relatively new. Like, it came out in the late 1800s. We didn't have breeds. They were just hounds or shepherds, things like that. So, I mean, you could go real deep into that. And then now that we have a dog in a city, which is not their natural environment, it's not our natural environment either. But when we lived in even agriculture, it was the bulldog was what it was called at the time. It was their job to run in front of the charging cow that was coming at the farmer, and pit bulls would die for their owners doing farm work. And so now that we do less and less farm work, and we're in the city, their outlets are different. So now they're trying to do like weight pulling to show, because they're very athletic people. I also interviewed the guy, the founder of the American Bully, which is the new sort of thing. And what he's doing is he's trying to create a more docile breed. So he described the American Bully as a bodybuilder, whereas the pit bull is an athlete. So pit bulls need an outlet. They need somebody who understands how they work, mind, body, and spirit. So I'd love to talk more.
I think I'll have to go get training too, because when we had the trainer come over, I was always reprimanded. The reason why our dogs act the way they do is because I act like it. I interact with them. She goes, you're interacting with them like they're a dog. Like they actually now consider you part of them, and that's why they're getting they're getting angry at your wife because she thinks you guys are together. I was like, for a while there, I was like, oh, so it was with Satine the Great Dane. Yeah. She really thought that because of my behavior, always being on their level, the way I kiss and my affection, I'm very affectionate. They're like, oh, the dog now sees her as a competitive female. I'm like, oh, fuck.
I like this.
That's exactly.
The dog meets Frank, and he's like, this guy might have been raised by wolves. So I'm seeing some
close to us. Yeah. They really are. They read us, and we read them.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap, though, Genevieve, I do. I have a self-serving request here. When I read her report, she broke down the owners like into categories. Would you please tell Frank what category I fell in?
Is a savior.
A savior. Oh, shit.
So yeah, I came up with different roles at the dog park. There is aggressors, and those are people who kind of perpetuate the stigma. They wear the spike collars. And then there's a loners. It's kind of like the schoolyard. Or there's professionals and people who dress nice. And saviors were the people who know that these dogs have a really bad rap, and they feel like they can make a difference. And that's what really sets the saviors apart from the other ones. Like the stigma did not deter them, and they know these dogs don't have a lot of advocates, and they know they can advocate for it, so they sort of step up to the plate for it. And he was the most amazing interview I had. It was such a pleasure to have him in there.
It explains so much about my dating life. I thought I could fix them all.
That's awesome. Careful. That's awesome.
He's even coming out with your dog. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Well, let's do this, Frank. Speaking of the formatics, now this has got to be the part.
Out.
Yep. You got to plug in. Tell them about the Amazon banner.
Yeah, if anybody following us, if you want to help us out here at the show, go to phoneboothfighting.com. If you go on there, you'll see the Amazon banner. By clicking on that to do any of your shopping, it'll give us a slight percentage back here at the show that helps us out at no extra cost to you. Also, too, anybody goes on my stuff, you can see I'm a big advocate. I want to talk more about it because I've been on this stuff now, the Kratom, for a while. And mil-spec and stuff, it's on my stuff, social media. Thanks. Go on there. You can buy it with the promo code at the same price I get it for. The shit's been unbelievable, that and the Black Belt CBD stuff. So,
all right, find him at the Frank Mir. Eric, where can everybody follow you and the gym and that sort of thing?
Eric at Xtreme Couture MMA, and then you guys can always hit us up on our website, XCMMA on Instagram or on Twitter, and we're right down the street, Valley View and Sunset, so you know where to find us.
Eric's got the coolest name, Nicksick. Eric Nicksick. Like, that's a name. I was at Punk Rock Bowling this weekend. Yeah. I was seeing if my last name were Nicksick, I would start a punk band and just go by Nicksick.
You're right.
That's what I would be.
Yeah.
Genevieve, any plugs, anything you want people to check out?
Yes. Please check out Pawtastic Friends.
Yeah.
Because it really is so common. I even had that fear where I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what somebody did to it. And I volunteered to work with these dogs, and I walked the biggest one they had because I loved it. And there's always this fear of lockjaw. And while I was walking it, he picked up a chicken bone, and not even thinking, I just stuck my hand in there and pulled that fucker right out. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so these dogs are capable of being rehabilitated, and if that's something that you're concerned about, please check out Pawtastic Friends.
Love it. Excellent. For Genevieve and Eric and Frank and Porno Mikey back with us, got the whole band back together. Thanks for checking out this one. Click on the 5 stars when you look us up in iTunes, Phone Booth Fighting. Subscribe to our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, and Frank and I will be right back with you next week. Bye, guys.